This is Neil McQuarrie for Raw 1251am, backstage at the O2 Academy Birmingham with C Duncan. Hello, Chris.
Hello, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Glad to hear it. So how's the tour going with Elbow so far? You're still sort of at the beginning of it right now, right?
We are, yes. It's going really well. It's just did a couple of days in Dublin with them, and that was great fun. And now back to kind of mainland UK, and just, got many more. It's going to be great.
You're just saying you're looking forward to the dotting from Travelodge to Travelodge around the country.
Yeah, very much. We've gone so used to Travelodges, it's just it's quite comforting going back to them in the evenings, and they're always tidier than any of our flats back in Glasgow, so you don't have to clean up after yourself, which is it's pretty perfect.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So if we rake it all the way back to the beginning, what's your first musical memory that you can think of?
First musical memory probably of our house. My parents used to run a music shop, or my mum used to run a music shop, kind of, for sheet music and kind of classical scores from the house. So that was when I was about 3, and lots of musicians would come over, and a lot of them would bring their instruments as well, because my dad used to play in a lot of ensembles. So that was probably my earliest memory of hearing people in that room in the shop where they used to play music. And then when I was about 6, our next door neighbours got a piano, and that was my first time actually playing music myself, and I used to go across there and I was just obsessed.
So would you say you were raised on more classical music?
Yeah, sort of. Just because that's what my parents do, they're both classical musicians, but it was kind of a mixture, they used to play a lot of Carpenters and Stevie Wonder, and that was kind of their go-to pop stuff. So I was kind of brought up on that as well, and then in my teens I developed my own tastes in various different styles.
Do you remember your first record you bought?
First record that was mine, I was bought for Christmas, was Spice Girls and Bewitched. I got those 2 one year for Christmas, and I must have been about 6 or 7. But the first one I actually bought was the Blur Best Of when I was about 10.
Would you say Damon Albarn had much of an influence on you?
Yeah, I would actually. Actually, the more I think about it, the more probably he has. His style of singing, he's got a very husky kind of, quite breathy voice, and I used to try, well, not imitate that, but I always really liked that style of singing. So more so the style of singing as opposed to the music, although I love Blur, but it hasn't really crept into my music that much, but certainly the way he sings.
There'll be no girls and boys covers this evening then?
No.
So how did you develop your songwriting technique after having that kind of upbringing?
Through just listening to a lot of music. So I think, from what I read, kind of reviews of my music, it's quite eclectic, which I guess it is. I don't really know what it's like to a kind of outside listener, but when I was growing up, I listened to anything and everything, and that's just, I'm listening to even more stuff now than ever. But I started listening to a lot of death metal when I was about 13 or 14, and then I was really in that kind of heavy world for a bit, and then started listening to Bjork and Radiohead, and then so I guess that's kind of dictated the sort of weird eclectic kind of stuff that I'm doing now.
That is quite the list you've got there.
Yeah.
So when you went to what was then the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, did that shape your technique at all, or did you sort of work against them almost? Which way was it round?
No, I think it shaped it. That was the other thing, is towards the end of my school, last 2 years at school, I started getting really into classical music, which I kind of shied away from because of my parents, I think. Although they never actively tried to make me learn classical music, but, as a kid you want to listen to loud, thrashy stuff. So towards the end of school, I realised actually I wanted to write classical, and I needed to go somewhere that was going to teach me how to do it properly. So what's now called the RCS, the Conservatoire in Glasgow, is it did shape my music a lot, because the tutors there all have such different tastes in contemporary classical music themselves that you're just kind of like, they just show you so much music and show you kind of ways of structuring stuff. So structure has become quite a big part of my pop music, and that was all from the academy, and kind of the way in which I layer melodies and all that sort of thing. So it did have a big influence on how the sort of pop stuff kind of came out, as well as classical stuff.
If you had to pick one contemporary classical composer to sort of sum up, I suppose your favourite one, basically, which would it be?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
There's not many people I can ask this one to, you see.
Okay, so only because I was listening to him last night. I mean, there are a few. I could list a few. Like I love Heine Goebbels and Damien Legassic, but last night I was listening to Louis Andriessen again, and I love this stuff. It's so it's just so Dutch, and it's I just kind of dictated that whole that second school in the Netherlands, and there's something so I don't know. He kind of mixes pop references almost, although he doesn't quite do it. But his music's almost quite poppy in a way. But he was doing that way before that sort of became quite a popular thing. And sort of mixing bass guitar in with tens of saxophones and just the subjects of his pieces are just bizarre, and he's very, very cool.
And you'd say that kind of fusion has probably influenced you?
Yeah, I think so. It's just like his music is by no means crossover. It's very much in the classical tradition, but it's just he's got that freedom to just use whatever he wants in his classical music, and whilst maintaining the sort of classical sound. And I do that in my pop music, I hope, which is very much pop music, but you can tell that I listen to a lot of choral music, say, and that's how I go about starting the music, and then you add the rest and it becomes pop music.
So, jumping forward a little bit, you released your first album, Architect. Now, that was then nominated for the Mercury Prize. What was that like, getting that nomination through?
It was very, very strange. Yes, completely. It was a complete surprise. We had no idea it was going to happen. In fact, I didn't even know the record had been put in for it, and the label weren't going to put it in. It was my publisher that said, "Oh no, let's put it in and see." So for all of us, it was a complete surprise, and just very surreal, because the way I record is I do everything from home by myself. And to release an album in the first place was weird, because people were actually listening to my music. But then to get nominated for something like the Mercury, which I'd been following since I was like 12, it's just it's like being on a different planet where that sort of thing happens to people like me. It was just very strange, but very, very exciting.
What was it like suddenly having your music thrust upon a much larger audience than it had been?
It was amazing. The whole reason I make music is for people to listen to. It's for people, music is it's such an important thing in their lives, and I wanted to get it out to as many people as possible. But I wasn't expecting it to happen so quickly, so I wasn't quite braced for that sort of level of listening. But it just kind of accelerated that part. The main reason for me wanting to do this. And it was great.
So then, moving forward again, you've released your second album, The Midnight Sun, last year. How would you say your sound has grown from album 1 to album 2, or changed at all?
I think I've found a sound now, although it's not going to stay the same, but with the first album it was very much trial and error, and that's why it's such a varied album, because I wasn't quite sure what style I wanted to do, but I was just enjoying doing it, and I was enjoying learning how to produce as I went. By the time album 2 came around, I knew what it was I wanted to make before I started it, and I had a very specific sound in my head, which was slightly icier, much more electronic, but still maintaining the things that I thought worked well from the first album, like all the vocal harmonies, the sort of surprise chord structures and that sort of thing. But it was much more focused.
And you're about to release, or perhaps just have released, your new single, Like You Do, from that album. What was the thought behind releasing that as a single, and maybe just tell us a little bit about that song? Sure.
It's a slightly strange choice for a single, in that it's probably the most depressing song on the album, but it's in a weird way it's quite upbeat as well. It sounds more like a single than a lot of the other tracks in the album, so kind of musically it seemed like a good choice. The song's about a lot of the album's about quite a difficult relationship I was in, and just everything that happened as part of that. And this was kind of one of the biggest dips in it, that this song came out, or that I was writing this. So it's just kind of about struggling with that sort of various depression and all sorts of other things. But it is a strange choice for a single, but at the same time, why not? You can have a depressing single every now and again.
Of course. You said you were a Radiohead fan. I mean, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So would you say there's a lot of your personal life in your music?
More and more so, yeah. So yeah, I'm becoming much more comfortable with writing about myself. That sounds kind of self-centered, but it's the way to relate to people is to sing about things that you've gone through yourself, and I want to start including that more in my music, and the Midnight Sun definitely has more of that. And the stuff I've been doing recently that I've started working on is it's just becoming much more not more lyric based, but I'm thinking more about what the songs are really about and trying to get my message across as as effectively as possible. Make things a lot clearer.
I guess the last point of this journey we're going through here is what's next after this Elbow tour, both in the studio and on the stage. What's coming next for you?
So live wise, we're going to be playing we're doing another tour whenever we finish up. We've got about a month off, and then in May we go back on tour for about 10 days, going back down to Birmingham again. We're going to Manchester and London and Edinburgh and various other places, and then summer festivals we're doing a few, and then I don't really know, it depends on what I write, which I started writing the next album, started recording it, so just I don't think it'll come out quite as quickly as the last one did, but it's that's work started on it.
Do you still record it all in a sort of homegrown way, or is it much more full-on studio-based now?
It's still as homegrown as it was when I did Architect. I just keep... So I've now taken over my entire apartment, because I used to have flatmates, and now I have the whole place to myself. So I basically keep upgrading room, that I record in each album, and now I'm in a nice big room where I've got a nice setup and nice equipment. So I think, there's another home record in me.
Do you think you'd ever move to a full-on studio to record?
Yeah, I would like to. Like, before I start any album, if anyone asks me that, I always say, the next one I'm going to do in a studio, but it's not happened yet. But I mean, I'll say it again now, but I mean, I'd love to go into a studio and just to see what it's like, because I've not really done much in studios. But I don't know how much I would record there and then produce back at home, or, I don't know how it's going to work in the future, but if I do go into a studio, but it's definitely something that I would like to do.
One final question. If you had one bit of advice or one thing to say to people at university now, be it people with a musical inclination or otherwise, what would it be?
At the risk of sounding corny and cliched, I guess, is just do what you like doing. And if you love making music, or you love painting or cooking or whatever, then just find ways, if you want, to make that your life, because that's what I always wanted to do, was to be an artist of some sort, and I just made it happen by working very, very hard at what I love, and as a result it's very rewarding, because you really reap the benefits, because your life is fulfilling.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.